Hello, welcome to It's All Good Show. My name is Denise Belisle, and I'm a serenity expert. And I'm here today with Frank Bolaji Irawo. Irawo?
Irawo.
Irawo. It's a mouthful for a French girl, but that's okay. We'll work it out. And but let me talk to you a little bit about the show. I'll be short today because we're recording on Zoom because we had difficulties with the other platform. It happens, right? And that's why, me and my show, it's all good. So everything that happened for a reason. We're here on Zoom because it's the best platform for us today. So, and it's all good. It's just because, why do I say that? Because whatever happened in the past, like us 5 Minute tried to get into the other platform and wasn't working, we couldn't change the situation, the fact that it wasn't working. So we look for solution. So what happened in the past is the past. There's no point getting upset about it. So what we did is we look at the situation and say, hey, what else can we do? Hey, let's go on Zoom. And here we are. We're on Zoom. We're going to make it work. We're going to have a great show, and you're going to have an amazing time getting to know Frank, because I got to know him not too long ago, and he's absolutely amazing. He's like the brother from another planet.
I liked it before I said a brother from another mother.
Yeah, I know. So Frank, please tell me who you are, where you're from, where do you come from, which planet you come from, and tell us a little bit about. Oh yeah, because he's a TransFLOWmation coach. So no, it's not my accent. It's not TransFLOWmation. He is TransFLOWmation. So we'll get to talk a lot about that today. So Frank, tell me a little bit about you and where you're from, what you've been doing.
Right. Well, first of all, Denise, thank you so much for inviting me onto your show and giving me this platform to share with your viewers. It's such a great pleasure. Well, I'm Frank, father of two, husband of my wife, Yvonne, based in North London, UK. I started out work-wise in IT and ended up TransFLOWmation coach, which I will explain what that is just in a minute. But anyway, it's not the first time I've tried to be a coach. I wanted to be a personal development coach ever since I was introduced to a book by a guy called Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Anyway, cut the long story short, my big, great plan was I'm going to be financially independent, leave my IT job, and go and set up a shop somewhere saying, coach, do come in and consult. Well, yes. I didn't quite think that one through. But anyway, what was odd about that experience was every attempt I made to become financially independent was taking me further away from being financially independent. And in fact, the only thing that stopped me was that I was on the edge of actually becoming totally bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of went, okay, something's not working here. Yeah. So I decided that I've got to review it. And that's when I discovered that I was trying to live life based on a model from the inside, from the outside in. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to achieve everything out there to convince myself I was enough, validate myself, and therefore believe that by doing so, I will be important and enough. What I recognized was if I already believed that I was enough, and then created from the place of being enough, that how much more fun will that be as an experience, and how much more effective would I be, and how much clearer would be my thinking and my actions that I was taking. And that really is where the story of TransFLOWmation came from. Mm-hmm. It is based on this very simple premise. There is a poem, there's a saying by Rumi called, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. The universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything that you want, you already are. So transformation is the idea that you can experience transformation if you recognize that everything you're looking for is inside of you. And my job and my work is to guide people to remove those barriers, to find and remove those barriers so that they can flow out of them. So it's transformation that comes from allowing what's inside to flow out so that you can serve the highest version of yourself.
That's pretty amazing. And it's a lot. it's a lot in one chunk. So let's try to break it down, because it's like I get it and I understand that, but it's a lot, because often, like, even I've had moments in my life where I was looking outside to get answers, and the answers are not necessarily outside. And what block a lot of people from being able to have a flow, to be able to move forward, is mental blockage, right? Things that we tell ourselves. And I also mention often to people that you're taught, your thinking, your word, and your action will reflect on how your life is happening. And I think that what you explained, the way I understood that, is that if you want to have better flow in your life, you want to have more different thoughts that would lead you to different action. Am I right? Am I wrong?
You're definitely hitting the right areas there. And in fact, I agree with you. It's a lot to take in. And that's why I created the space framework to help walk people through what it means to be fully present and to really step into the fullness of who you are. And if you indulge me, I'd kind of like to quickly just step through what that is, just so people can understand that a bit better.
Absolutely.
So, like you rightfully said, the first step is to discover who you really are beyond the mind, because a lot of us have never been told, because we live in a world where the mind and what the mind comes up with tends to be the thing that we believe without even doubting it. And for me, when I read a book by a guy called Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul, I discovered that I was not my mind. I was the one who was aware of my mind. Yeah. So understanding the true essence of who you are as awareness is a big step in the right direction. The second step is learning why the mind does what it does and how to make it work for you. And the idea there is that the mind is there to try and protect you, but sometimes it gets confused. It confuses real imagined danger with real danger. And it thinks it's trying to help you, and things that used to help you when you're younger, now you're older, it doesn't recognize that you no longer need those mechanisms anymore. So again, it's how you learn to work with your mind so that it works for you and not against you. Third, discover why fighting your mind is not a great idea and what to do instead, how to transcend the mind. And then 4, learn a technique that will help you transcend that mind, which is what I help people do, and discover the treasure that exists in the current moment. So that is kind of walking through the space framework. And as we go on further, I would kind of expand on that further.
Yeah, that's amazing the way you explained it. And I love the process, the stages where just to really understand who we are, right? And I'm looking at your logo right now. It's like the lines are all tangled amongst each other. And once you understand, once you're in the flow, then it just goes straight, like everything gets easier. Everything is, I love that design. Everything is aligned the way it should be in your mind, your body, your spirit, however, you want to work it. And I love that. So and so that's what I understood from that. And also, what I would like to elaborate on is the fourth step for now. Like how does the fourth step happen? And could you elaborate on what kind of changes can people experience once they reach that?
So once we recognize the mind for what it is, then we recognize that if we are the one who is aware of what the mind is coming up with, and the experience that is creating for us is not one that serves us in that moment, what we have the ability to do is to reset into the current moment. So you drop out of all the neuroses of the mind into something that works at a level that is much deeper. And one of the simplest way to do this is just consciously becoming aware of your breath, just by doing, because the mind can't really multitask. It pretends that it can, but it can't. So if you consciously become aware of your breath, it all of a sudden drops you out of all that neurosis and brings you back into the rhythm of life that is flowing through you. And in that place, you can then choose to focus on things that would really empower you in that moment. So what is it that needs to happen right now that will help me? And you can then connect to that intuitive wisdom that has always been there, but you couldn't access because the mind was hijacking you. It was blocking the bandwidth, basically.
And how do you get people to recognize those blockages? Because often people don't know, right? That it's their mind that blocked them. They blame the neighbors, they blame the boss, they blame the traffic, they blame, the economy, they blame the interest rate, they blame the government, but they don't realize that it might be their brain that blocks them from having the flow. So how can people recognize that?
Right. So there is no shortcut to this, and that's why the space is a process. Because S stands for see your true essence. You are not who you think you are. And if you indulge me, there's a piece I want to read that will help people really see it. As you're aware, I use poetry quite a lot in my work to try and convey these messages. So this one is called Mistaken Identity. Helpless born, flesh and bones, identified by my color of skin, the height I reach, hand span increase, shoes no longer fit, bushy hair gone astray, not before it morphed from black to gray, slowly reborn, cell by cell, every 10 years, weight that piles on and perchance may fall. Eventually all this will falter and stall, I the constant through it all. And the idea is that I am not my body. I am not my mind. I am the one who is aware of all these things. I am the one who have maintained continuity of who I am through all these things. Therefore, when I begin to think, okay, what's going on up here? I recognize I'm the one who's seeing and understanding, oh, my mind is gone off somewhere. It's trying to save me from something that is not a danger. Therefore, I don't have to go along with that ride. I can say, oh, thank you, mind, for your help. I think now I understand what's going on. I choose what serves me in this moment. So that is the first one. The other one is what you alluded to, being present to the source of the confusion. What is causing this confusion? What we don't recognize is the mind is very clever. It creates the drama, and it also writes the press release that says it's not responsible for the drama. So it's seen beyond that. And this leads me to this piece called Made Up, that we don't recognize how much the mind is making up and presenting to us as if, no, that's really how it is. But actually, when you think about it, you recognize, actually, it's all made up. And this piece says, made up. Made up, me, apparently a single self, being preserved at all cost. All made up, that's me. Made up, me, such exquisite history. All the stories that define me, all made up about me. Made up me, who I ought to be, how much it takes to reach, all made up, you see. Made up me, whose love will fill me, the only one made for me, all made up like all the others. Made up me, what I deserve, what it takes to be enough, all made up on the hearth. Made up me, what my services are worth, what it will take to be content, all made up, none can agree. Made up me, made up so much, don't know where it stops, all mind made up behind the scenes. Made up me, why take it so seriously? Might as well have fun, nothing to lose. I'm all made up.
Wow, as you can see, people, that's why I invited him over. He got me with all his beautiful, intuitive, and inspiring poem. And I think that says it all, right? I mean, we create something that is not real. Like we wear different hats, right? And these hats are not what's inside. These hats are what's we want to show the society, but not necessarily how we really feel, right?
And what's wonderful about seeing through all of that is that it doesn't mean everything needs to be thrown away. It just means your relationship to it, you don't hold it so tightly because you recognize that, well, they're made up, so they can be changed. They can be adjusted to work for us rather than against us. Imagination is a good thing, but when all it imagines is danger that doesn't exist, then all of a sudden that doesn't serve you. But that imagination could be used to create wonderful things, things that are in service of others. So it's really just reassessing our relationship with what we consider reality to be, and seeing through that which is mind made up and which is really real. And working with it in a way that serves us. So that kind of begins to lay the foundation for the next phase, which is where you learn to ascend your thinking. What I found in my work is very often when people discover that the mind is making all this stuff up, their first instinct is to fight it, blame it, and resist it. But what I found out, that really never really works. And I wrote a piece about this called resistance. Resistance is futile. To resist is to engage. To engage is to exchange, fueling the energy by which it persists. It's here for its reason. Let it have its season. Glean all its lessons. Then let it be that it too shall pass. And the beauty of that piece is saying that, oh, actually, there might be something we can learn from what the mind is trying to do. For example, if the mind is trying to create this idea that it thinks you're in danger, then there might be a story there that you've not unpacked about why those things mean danger for you. Something that happened when you were much younger and you've not yet upgraded your thinking to say, oh, it's all right, mind, I'm fine. I'm grown up now. I have better ways of dealing with this. So we don't have to do that way. We don't have to run away. We don't have to shy away from new things, because new things can also be an adventure.
Yes. And that's a little bit of the principle of positive intelligence, which, I've been working with, and we call those protectors the saboteurs, right? And we have a series of saboteurs that are, you have the victim, you have the controller, you have the hypervigilant, the hyper, a whole bunch of them. But this is exactly the same idea, that at some point you needed to, for example, someone that is a hyperachiever, if your parents, one of your parents die, let's say your father either divorce or die, and you're the man of the house now, and you had to take those responsibilities, even if you're 11, and you're being told that you have to be in control, you have to let your emotion away and be your big man now because you're the man of the house. And that moving forward, you carry that, I have to be in charge, I have to be the man of the house, and you don't let go, right? You don't let go of having the control and having other people to do things. And these are little things, for example, that led those controller, those old story lead us into our life in the future, that as you just mentioned it beautifully, that we don't need to, we can thank them for being there and let them go and say, I'm able to do it now, I'm strong enough, and I can do things differently now because I know better. And one of the points that I love that you brought is the consciousness of where you are, right? Being aware that, you might want to play a role, but if you're conscious that you're playing that role, it's totally different than if you're playing the role because you think it's your personality, right?
Yeah. That, and that's why I call the framework space, because it's creating the space between you and all that, so that you can choose how it serves you or not. But when you don't recognize that it's not you and you're the one who's aware of it, there is no space. So you're caught up in all of it and going along with all of it and experiencing all the suffering that could come from all of that when it doesn't quite serve you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I love that. And so tell me about how, like, who's your ideal client? Like if you could describe, like, the person that listen right now, and then you say, hey, you, because you need me right now. So what would that look like?
So for me, I struggle with this question a lot, because obviously what as you can see, what I'm pointing to affects everybody. But here's what I discovered, that the people for whom this would create the most impact in the world are leaders who themselves are leading so many other people. So what I've decided to do was focus on senior leaders who are probably heads of departments and above, who are not enjoying their current experience of leadership, because one of the problems with the way we define leadership these days is that leadership, again, using my framework, is the idea that they believe that they need to go and add all these things to themselves to become great leaders, rather than recognizing that that leader is already in them. They need to get out of the way and let those things come out, and also to begin to trust some of that wisdom that comes out, and beginning to drop the shoulds and begin to really understand how does leadership look on them as opposed to what someone else is doing. So that kind of is where I come from, that the leadership journey starts from within, and I help senior leaders to identify that and to embody that energy so that they can be real and vulnerable, but at the same time visionary in how they lead their teams. They create an environment, because once people get this, it transforms not just them, but how they treat other people, because they recognize that what they've discovered as truth for them must be true for other people as well, that those people are experiencing themselves in a way where they're caught up in what the mind is not recognizing it. So by creating an environment with a leader who gets this, the kind of environment they create for their people to grow and develop, and the kind of, because really we can do extraordinary things when we embrace all of ourselves and all that is available that the universe is bringing together to help us achieve.
Yes, and I imagine when that happens, it'll allow people to, well, that will make them better leader and have more, when you allow yourself to be more vulnerable, then you also give the chance to other people to come in. Yeah. Right. As opposed to be, I'm the best, I'm the leader, you do what I said. And it's such a closed environment. But once you let the guard down and you become more vulnerable, I imagine on a senior level, like it allows other people to trust you better. Right. Yes.
Yes. Yes, it definitely does. And one thing I've discovered is that walls are interesting. If you build a wall to protect yourself, that wall also blocks things out, so that there's no way around it, that you cannot be vulnerable, you cannot have true connection without vulnerability. You can't choose one and then try out the other, because the wall needs to be down for you to see over, and for people to see over you where you are. And again, one of the things that I also help leaders do is understand this idea that if you're not enjoying the process, don't sit around waiting for some magical thing at the end, because that in itself is not what life is about. Life is about experiencing every moment. And if you'd indulge me, there's this piece here called The End, which really just talks about this. What if life was like a piece of music? Would you turn a deaf ear to every other note, waiting for the rush of the anticipated crescendo? What if life was like a book of adventures? Would you keep flicking through all the pages, building all the anticipation for a climatic end? What if life was like a collection of present moments? Wouldn't you live every one of them like they mattered, letting the final end come when it does, with no regrets? And it's that idea that if you're designing your perfect life or designing your perfect role or whatever, it's important that baked into that is the ability to enjoy the moments that make up that, rather than the belief that, oh, I'm just going to grind through everything and it's all going to be worth it at the end. Because from my experience, you get to the end and go, what was that? You've missed the journey.
Yeah.
All the fun.
And even like it's enjoying everything, even through failure, right? Like it's, and enjoying, like having a path and walking that path Of course, there's an end goal that we all want to reach in life, for depending on what that is. If we go on a date, maybe the end goal is, I won't go in details, but like there's always an end goal. But if you just focus on that, then you lose so much of your present moment all the way through, right? Like you only live in the future, but you can't predict the future. And if that future that you have in your mind doesn't come, then you're only facing disappointment, right?
And that is the point. And the other interesting thing when you really go into the dynamics of time is actually you cannot live the future because the future never comes, because at the point when you hit what you define the future to be, it is now.
The
So
present,
you can only ever live in the now, because the now is always what's present right now. So if you're you might as well enjoy the nows, and then you have no regret at the end, regardless of what happens there. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I don't think you and I would ever argue. Everything you say is like, yep, absolutely. I agree with that. And that's the thing, right? Like, because we can't, and people say, yeah, but I have to plan, I have to draw a map, and it's okay. It's okay. I mean, if you need to go from London to Paris, you need to draw an itinerary, but be prepared along the way that there might be things that gets in the way that have you diverge in a new direction. And who knows, maybe you'll end up in Belgium, and then you'll say, oh, well, I'm okay to be in Belgium, I don't need to go to Paris, right? And be open to that, right? In any situation in your life.
Exactly. And that it really is. And this brings me to my next piece, actually, this whole idea that you can only ever experience your best self in the moment doing your best work. And what often gets in the way of our doing our best work is because we're not present in that moment to access the resources that the universe is presenting to us. And I call this piece your best self. In this moment, is this the best I can do? Then I can ask no more. To this notion, I'll be true. This is my best self for me. Creating space for everyone to live in the reality that is at play in this moment. That is their best self too. Until it isn't, making way for something new.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, that's what I keep saying, right? That's why I say it's all good, right? Because whatever you experience today, that's as good as it gets right now, right? And you could choose to be miserable, or you could choose to be happy. And people have a hard time when I tell them that they can choose, right?
Yeah.
They can choose to be happy as opposed to be miserable, and say, yeah, but look at this. How can I be happy with that? So you want to talk a bit about that?
I definitely do, because I think it's interesting, actually. Part of what causes us to be unhappy is the reality is not agreeing with reality. Reality is here already. By the time you note what you're unhappy about, it has already happened. You cannot change that. You're late to the party. The question is, what experience are you going to have of it? Now, the premise people tend to believe, again, going at this outside in kind of perspective, is that something out there happened, and therefore I have no choice but to experience it in this way. But in actual fact, the experience we have of something is not based on what actually happened. It's based on our thinking about what actually happened. And that is the reason why 20 people can have the same experience and have 20 different, they can have the same event happen rather, and have 20 different experiences of the same event. That scientifically proves that it is not what happened that created the experience. It's how you interpret, it's how you think about it that creates the experience. And one of the best ways to reframe and reshift our perspective on things is being grateful. Is looking for things to be grateful for, rather than most of our suffering comes from disagreeing with a reality that has already happened. And we can argue with reality until it's blue in the face. It's already happened. So what good can we get out of it? We can learn and we'd be grateful for what's good from what's happened, because there's always something good if you look hard enough. This piece is called Glass Full. Grateful for the chance Grateful because I know life owes me nothing. Everything is a gift. I'm grateful for the glass, grateful for what is in it, be it half full or all the way up. I'll be no less grateful for it.
Amazing. We talk the same language. I love it. You in a little bit more prose than I do, but you know, like I keep nodding everything you say. Every time you say something, I say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you were to listen to my previous, you know, talk, and I always say, like, there's always the yin and the yang. There's always some good in every bad situation. There's always some bad in every good situation. When you think, oh, wow, it's amazing. Well, there's a little bit of something in there that is not perfect. There's no 100% perfect situation. But the gift that we have, as you mentioned just now, is to be grateful for that situation, regardless. Because it's either, if it's something negative with that tiny bit of positive, well, it's a gift of experience. It's a gift of growth. It's a gift of resilience. It's a gift, like when we think that it's so bad, right? Like there's always a gift in that. Curiosity, being curious about, why did that happen, and what have to learn in that situation? Like there's so much, you know, when people think that everything is so negative, search a little bit, ask yourself the right questions, right?
And this is again why I call this framework space, because I think that's what people often miss, this creating the space to reflect on those things and to be able to see, because we as human beings are self-fulfilling prophecies. As the guy said, you know, if you say you can, you can. And if you say you can't, you can't. And the reason why we're self-fulfilling prophecies is because we have selective sight. So we could, when we have filters, so we can't take in everything that's happening around us. So we have inbuilt filters that only bring into our awareness things that we are considered important to us. That's why if you buy a car, a white car, all of a sudden you see all the white cars on the road and you think, well, everybody's going to buy a white car all of a sudden. No, they haven't. It's because all of a sudden now you've invested in a white car. White cars are now important to you. And it's important for your brain to help you feel that you've made a good choice and see all the wonderful people with great taste who have gone out and who have white cars. So we all live with filters. And if our filter says, where's the bad in this? We will filter out everything that's good about it, and we will only see what's bad. So then you would be right.
Yeah, then you would say in the bad, and that would say, "Oh man, I'm not original anymore. Everybody has a white car. I hate my white car."
That's
now,
another way of seeing the same thing, right? So that, and that's why I talked about all made up. All this stuff is made up.
Of course.
So let's just hold it lightly enough and say, okay, how can I look at it that will serve me? How can I engage with this in the way that serves me and gives me the experience of it that helps me evolve, helps me enjoy and experience life differently.
Wow. So much amazing information in here. I hope you guys, people that are listening, will take advantage of being in touch with Frank. So how can people reach you? And I'll put that in the show note. So tell us now, and then, you know.
Right. The best way to connect with me is the link you're going to provide. Unfortunately, it's not an easy one to read out because it's got dots in the
okay.
So if people go on there, it's a link tree. So it's got different areas where you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can join our Poetricity mailing list, and what that will do is it fires off a weekly poem, which is a transformation poem, a wisdom poem with thoughts that will help guide you and set you up for the week. I've also got in there a leadership booklet, electronic copy of a leadership booklet, and it talks about leadership from within. So it helps you lay out how you can be a leader who allows it to flow from within. So these are all things that are available via that link.
Wonderful. And I imagine that people that think, well, I'm not a senior executive, I can't benefit from that book, but I imagine that little booklet, we are a leader in every aspect of our lives, right?
That is true. And
We,
that is true.
we
Yeah.
can be a leader as a parent. We can be a
Yes.
leader as an employee. We can be a leader as a lover, as a partner. So I think everybody can benefit from downloading that little booklet.
Definitely they can. Yes, you put it, rather succinctly, actually, because I remember when I used to have this idea of, hey, how am I going to coach leaders? You know, I'm a leader up to here. And then I eventually realized, actually, I've been a leader for over 25 years at that time. And I just discounted my leadership in spiritual communities, my leadership at home, my leadership in different capacities. And whether you like it or not, you're a leader because someone's watching you. You are an example for somebody, whether you signed up for it or not. So
that remind me, I don't have it with me right now, but I had a list of probably 20 lines that says, and it's very positive to make you bring your self-value. It's like, right now at this moment, somebody's thinking of you. Right now at this moment, somebody miss you. Right now at this moment, somebody loves you, right? Like it's all little things like that
oh, that's beautiful.
when we think that, I'll find it and I'll send it to you, that might inspire a poem. But when I read that, I was just like, wow, this is amazing, because when we think that, oh, we're all by ourselves, nobody loves me, nobody cares about me, nobody, but really there's all the people we have interacted in our lives that, like, for me, sometimes I'm thinking of someone that I've met 20 years ago. Like, I'm thinking about that. Oh, I wish I could see that person again. So at that time, I'm the one thinking about that person.
Yes,
right?
indeed.
And
so there's a good chance someone else is thinking about you.
So there's always, like, we're all so interconnected. And often we forget that. We forget that we are one in reality with everyone on the planet somehow.
And that's another part of my work, which we can't even get into right now, because maybe we'll have to do another podcast.
We will.
And I call it the illusion of separation, and the idea that actually we are all manifested essence of the same universe. And there's only one essence in the universe of which we are representations of. And that's when you look at a plant, you look at it's got different parts with different names, different colors, but it's all part of the same plant. And I think we see ourselves as individuals almost like it's a persistent illusion, but in truth. And that is why we're able to connect with each other and able to sense each other in a way that is beyond what physical interaction could really achieve. And even though we might be over for different parts of the world right now, we can connect at the level and experience energy. And the only way that's possible is because there's something that connects us at that level. So energetically, we're all the same. We're just showing up in different ways.
And we all have, you say energetically, we're all the same. I like to do an analogy with us being a battery, right? And some of us has a full battery, and some of us has a lower battery, which is the level of energy you bring to the game, right? The level of energy that you bring to your life. And sometimes we need to connect ourselves. Like for you, I feel like you are a charger, right? Like when people connect with you, it allows them to recharge their battery and become more aware of their surroundings, so that they can, when they leave working with you, go somewhere else, and then they become the charger for the people.
Yes, I love that analogy. I love that. I should get you to write my copy. That sounds very good.
I can be your muse, but I won't write for you. I'm happy to be your muse. So I think I forgot when we started, so I think we need to wrap it up. So can you one last tip of how can something that maybe you have another poem to close this call, or how can we wrap it up right now?
I think a gift about how to become present would be a wonderful way to wrap this up. This one is called Present Focus. I beg to be enlightened. The moment before me slips away in a blink. Thoughts of all things past, ruminations of a future unseen, eaten away at what focus there is. A quiet spot, my eyes now shut, consciously breathing. My focus on what matters in this moment.
Thank you. So it was a real pleasure to have you here today. And I will register to that weekly poem, because that's something I feel that if people really pay attention, you know, often we register to those mailing lists and we say, oh, that's Frank, you know, whatever. But I think if people were to take the time to even take that poem, print it out, or have it, you know, easily accessible, that would be a great weekly inner work to do with themselves, right? That's how I saw that when you explained it.
Yeah, that's exactly what's meant to be, like a self-coaching tool, because not everybody can afford to hire a coach. It's your own poetic coach in your pocket.
And that allows people to self-reflect. Okay, this week, let's reflect on this. And sometimes you'll have a poem that it's exactly when you need it. And some of the time, the poem that you got last week, you need to work on it twice for 2 weeks, right? Definitely. Like there's a lot of work to be done, and there's lots of beauty in the world. So let's explore more about ourselves, about our inner flow, and to make our struggle lines to go straight and smooth.
Oh, beautiful.
So thank you so much, Frank. And
thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you for the audience for listening. I hope you get great value from this, and check the show notes below in the comment, and in if you're watching this on YouTube, in the details, how you can reach Frank. And don't be afraid, you know, sign up for his weekly newsletter, and I'm sure you'll get great benefit from that. So again, Frank, thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.